The sun broke over the horizon of Hollow Glen, turning the morning dew into a million tiny diamonds. Pip stepped out from her burrow and immediately caught the reflection of something unusual on the damp earth. She knelt, pressing her paws into the cool soil, and traced the line of small indentations left behind. They were tracks, sharp and clear. Pip tilted her head to the left, then to the right. She moved her hand along the path, frowning as the realization settled in. The toes pointed toward the deep woods, but the heel mark suggested the creature had been moving backward. She stood up, her head bobbing as she looked from the tracks to the horizon. A sudden sharp puff of white air escaped her as she shook her head, unable to hide the spark of sudden interest. "Small feet? Big adventures?" she whispered to the quiet clearing. She did not hesitate. Pip placed her own foot into the first print, found her balance, and began to follow the trail. Every step was deliberate, matching the rhythm of the strange prints. The mystery was already pulling her forward, and she refused to let the trail go cold. She checked the ground one last time before stepping into the dense ferns, her eyes locked on the path ahead. The trail led deep into a cluster of oversized daisies that stood taller than her knees. As Pip pushed through the stems, the flowers shuddered. A fine golden dust erupted from the centers, hanging in the air like a thick fog. Pip blinked rapidly, her nose twitching as the pollen tickled her lungs. She ducked her head, trying to shield her face, but a sudden, violent sneeze forced her to stop mid-stride. She wiped her eyes, waiting for the air to clear, and caught her breath. The path ahead seemed to vibrate. Beneath the rustle of the leaves, a low, rhythmic humming began to pulse. It was not a bird, nor the wind. It sounded steady, like a heartbeat echoed against the wood. Pip stepped out from the daisies, shaking the remaining dust from her shoulders. The sound grew louder, vibrating against her palms as she braced herself against a thick, gnarled root. She tilted her head, listening. The forest floor felt alive with the rhythm. She moved toward the massive oak tree, her heartbeat synchronizing with the hum. Whatever was making that sound was just on the other side of the trunk. She crept forward, placing her paws carefully on the moss to keep her movement silent, and rounded the edge of the bark. Pip rounded the massive oak and stopped dead. A giant, waxy leaf was sliding slowly across the forest floor. Behind it, a creature walked backward, his head tucked low. Pip watched as he tugged the leaf, his feet kicking up small puffs of dirt. "Almost home! Almost home!" he muttered. Pip stepped out from behind the trunk. The creature froze, letting the leaf drop. He turned, his gaze darting toward the ground. He looked back at Pip, then gestured to the leaf. He reached out and lifted the edge. Beneath the green surface lay a seed, pulsing with a rhythmic, golden light that cast long shadows across the moss. The creature looked at the sky, his worry plain in the set of his jaw. "I need to reach Grandma Moss before the first star appears," he said, his voice tight with urgency. Pip looked from the glowing seed to the distant horizon, where the sun had begun to dip toward the trees. The light from the seed flickered, matching the steady, anxious thrum in the air. The mission was clear. Pip stepped forward, planting her paws firmly on the ground, and reached out to grab the edge of the leaf. They had no time to waste. They dug their feet into the soft earth and pushed. The weight of the hum seed was immense, a golden anchor that resisted every forward inch. As they hit the base of the Tickle Moss Hill, the ground beneath them began to shift. It was not solid dirt, but a carpet of tiny, vibrating moss fibers that reacted to their pressure. With every step, the earth rippled, sending tremors up their legs. Pip felt the ground buckle and sway, causing the seed to tilt precariously to the left. She dug her claws deeper into the soil, bracing her shoulder against the leaf's edge. Tom moved in rhythm with her, his breathing heavy as he adjusted his grip. The hill seemed to giggle, a low, bubbling sound that rose from the soil, making the seed wobble and slide. They had to move in perfect sync to keep the golden light from tipping over. Pip watched Tom, mimicking the tension in his muscles, pushing whenever he pushed, holding steady whenever the ground buckled. It was a slow, exhausting dance against the slope. They moved upward, one strained step at a time, their shadows lengthening as the sun continued its descent. They were locked in a physical pact, their combined strength, the only thing keeping their burden moving toward the summit. A sudden intense tremor rippled through the hill, louder and sharper than before. The mossy ground beneath the seed gave way, turning slick and unstable. With a sickening lurch, the hum seed broke free from their grip. It spun, catching the slope, and began to roll backward with alarming speed. Tom stumbled, his footing lost in the shifting fibers, and he fell hard. Pip did not think. She lunged, her small body a blur against the darkening sky. She scrambled over the uneven terrain, dirt flying under her paws, as she chased the golden pie. Pulsing weight, the seed gathered momentum, its light flashing rapidly as it bounced off a root. Pip dove, throwing her full weight into the path of the rolling mass. She slammed her paws against the warm, glowing surface, digging her claws deep into the moss to anchor herself. Her muscles screamed under the sudden impact. The seed groaned, vibrating against her chest, but it stopped. She held it there, trembling, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The hill remained silent, as if holding its own breath, while she braced against the incline. She was the only thing standing between the seed and the bottom of the hill, her grip slipping, her resolve the only friction left to hold back the slide. Pip felt the tension in her muscles begin to ease as Tom scrambled back to his feet, his hands immediately finding the leaf edge again. The race had become a blur of movement and strained breathing. Above them, the horizon transformed, bleeding from deep orange into a bruised, soft violet. Then, a sharp, white point of light pricked the velvet sky. The first star. Pip looked at Tom, his eyes wide with urgency, and they surged upward. The hill leveled out, the vibrating moss finally settling under their tired feet. They crested the rise, the weight of the seed shifting as the ground flattened. Before them stood the hollow, a dark, rounded doorway framed by thick roots. A figure waited in the threshold. Grandma Moss stood motionless, her presence steady against the encroaching night. As they rolled the seed to the center of the entrance, the frantic rhythm of their hearts finally began to slow. Tom let out a long, shuddering breath, his grip loosening as the seed came to rest. They had made it. The urgency of the climb evaporated, replaced by the quiet, heavy stillness of the glen. Grandma Moss stepped forward, her hands reaching out to guide the seed. The race was over. The heavy seed sat motionless in the center of the hollow, its golden pulse slowing until it seemed to fade entirely. Pip stepped back, her paws trembling from the long climb. Silence stretched across the room, heavy and expectant. Then a faint crystalline sound emerged, a delicate crack, like ice shifting on a pond. The surface of the seed shuddered. A hairline fracture appeared along the top, glowing with a brightness that forced Pip to shield her eyes. Slowly, the outer shell began to peel away. The petals unfurled with a graceful, rhythmic motion, stretching outward until they spanned the width of the floor. A brilliant, warm light erupted from the center, surging outward like a tide. It washed over the walls, turning the dark, earthen interior into a cavern of shimmering gold. As the light expanded, a soft, melodic lullaby rose from the core of the bloom. The notes hung in the air, vibrating against the mossy walls, turning the gloom of the glen into a place of profound peace. Grandma Moss stood by the entrance, her face illuminated by the radiance, eyes glistening as the sound filled every corner. Pip watched the golden patterns dance, feeling the weight of the day dissolve into the warmth of the song. Pip turned away from the warmth of the hollow, stepping out into the cool, quiet night. The first star hung high above, casting a faint silver glow over the glen. She walked slowly, the memory of the golden light still flickering in her mind. The journey had been long, but the weight she had carried felt different now, lighter, tempered by the shared effort with Tom. She reached her burrow entrance, the familiar scent of damp earth welcoming her home. She paused, ready to rest, but a movement in the soft dirt caught her eye. She leaned down, squinting in the starlight. A set of tiny, distinct prints trailed across the threshold, marks that skipped and hopped in perfect, deliberate circles. Pip froze. These were not her own. She followed the trail with her gaze, watching it disappear into the tall grass where the shadows grew deep. The exhaustion of the day vanished, replaced by a sudden, sharp curiosity. A small smile spread across her face. The glen was never truly quiet, and the world outside her door had already begun to turn a new page. Whatever had left those marks was waiting for her tomorrow, and for the first time, she did not mind that the adventure was only just beginning.